welcome to the special presentation from the Association of Golf Merchandisers and Boxto. My name is Frank LaRosa, producer and host of the Golf to Go radio show here in Sacramento, California. I'm really honored to be with all of you. On behalf of the Association of Golf Merchandisers, I'd like to extend a warm welcome and our heartfelt thanks to each of you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us for what promises to be an insightful and engaging session. A special thank you to Boxto for sponsoring this event. Their support as an AGM Gold level sponsor is pivotal in bringing such valuable content to our members. And of course, we're incredibly honored to host the legendary Jim Furyk, whose contributions to the game of golf are nothing short of extraordinary. And we're going to learn about that in just a moment. For those of you who may be new, the AGM is dedicated to empowering the world of golf retail with a focus on enhancing relationships, elevating retail experiences, and providing continuous education. We strive to set the standard for golf merchandising excellence. Today's conversation is just one example of how we bring industry leaders and innovators directly to you, our valued members and partners. So without further ado, let's dive into today's discussion and uncover some of the wisdom and stories that Jim Furyk and our friends at Boxto have to share. Good morning, Mr. Furyk and Jim. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of wisdom, but we can definitely tell some stories. How's that?
You know, that's the great thing about language. We can put any kind of description on the word wisdom that we like.
There you go.
You know, one of the things I've found in being around the game of golf so much is that that there's more similarities in all of us than there are differences. And by that, I mean, we all kind of have similar stories about how we got started in the game. So I guess first I would ask you, who put a club in your hand the first time and what was that like?
Well, my father was a golf professional, a club professional when I was young. And so they have pictures of me with cut down clubs, gauze tape for grips. Of course, back then there was no US Kids or no junior golf equipment. So they were pretty heavy. Dad's trying to shorten them up, get some gauze tape on there where I could grip them. But I had a club in my hand from the age of 2, and I had some great instruction. And but Dad kind of held me out of golf for quite a few years. He didn't want me to feel like I had to play golf because he was in that business. And so I played football, basketball, baseball. I really didn't start to play golf on my own without my father until I was about 12 years old. And really, I just pestered him and pestered him and pestered him to get out there on the golf course. And he realized that I wasn't doing it for him, but I just really enjoyed it and wanted to play more and be, a bigger part of the game.
That's a great story. I was going to ask you, what are some of the things you learned or got from your parents? But that's a great lesson right there to as a youngster, not to concentrate so much on one sport, but to get involved in all of them. What kind of wisdom did your parents have for you?
I think I was always a very competitive person. Hated to lose probably more than any kid I ever met. And so really, I think my parents wanted me to have a good time. They wanted me to have fun. There wasn't a lot of pressure put on me by my parents to practice or to play or to even excel at the game of golf or other sports. It was more trying to calm me down and keep me from getting upset at myself for whether it was a poor golf shot, poor scores, playing bad in the game. Mom and dad never put a lot of pressure on me. There's just a lot of support, and I guess I appreciate that. Raising my kids and seeing maybe not the expectations that I put on them, but my kids coming up in the game of golf struggled probably a little bit with some expectations put on them from other folks. They were expected to be good players because their father played the tour, and neither one was really that interested in playing tournament golf. They just wanted to play the game for fun, and so. We definitely had some struggles with that when they were young in life, and I'm thankful that my mom and dad never really put that pressure on me, and they weren't pushing me in sports. They were really just trying to be very supportive and be at every game, be there as much as possible.
At what point in your life did you decide this is pretty good? I think maybe I want to try and make a living doing this.
When I was a sophomore in high school, my dad came home. He was in sales at that point. He sold golf equipment for a living. All the pros and Eastern PA, Southern Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. He had all those, golf professionals as clients, and some good junior players, some guys that had gotten some scholarships to go play, golf in college. And we started talking about me and what I wanted to do in my future. And I was really kind of catching the golf bug. I was starting to have some success in tournaments and play the game. And we kind of made a plan about, what do you want to do? And I at that point, I really wanted to play college golf. I felt like I had the ability to play Division I golf and go to a big school to play and learn and get better. And so that night, I actually quit baseball. I'd quit football before my freshman year of high school to play golf. It was both fall sports. Sophomore year, I quit baseball. I stuck with basketball through high school because I had grown up in Pennsylvania in the winter. But I think kind of that decision that night, sitting down with my father, kind of making a plan for my future. And again, it was all my choice. That's probably the first time I really decided I was going to get serious about the game. And then we started maybe traveling a little bit, playing some regional tournaments, playing some national tournaments as I got older, and tried to gain, the attention of some college coaches.
Did you have any heroes, people that really made the game exciting for you that you wanted to aspire to be like?
Well, I mean, you're talking about golf professionals I saw on
Yeah,
TV, or
yeah.
I would say my first and foremost was Jack Nicklaus, and
Hmm.
and then I'd have to say exactly why. I mean, in 1986, I was 16 years old. I really loved the game. The Masters, probably the first Masters I ever really sat down and watched. And so my buddies and I were at the club. We were practicing. We knew when the telecast was coming on. We ran into the golf clubhouse, grabbed a soda and a hot dog, and sat down and watched. Whatever. If it was on for 2 or 3 hours, we watched the whole telecast there at the golf club. And obviously 1986, Jack Nicklaus coming from behind, winning as a 46-year-old, just an amazing event. And so one of my dear friends, still to this day, that I talk to, we always had, with kids, you had a 8-footer to win the Masters. We always had chipping contests, putting contests. He was a little older than me, so he always took precedent. He was Jack Nicklaus. I would take Arnold Palmer, being from Pennsylvania, and we would go out there. We were Jack and Arnie every day practicing. So two of my heroes, and then the ability to meet Byron Nelson later in my life, to play Byron's event in Dallas. But also, I had some dinners with them. I had some nice conversations with them. One of the most unbelievable gentlemen, not in the game of golf, but one of the most unbelievable gentlemen I've met in my life. And so, um, I know of the great records of all those men, but I think the way they carried themselves off the golf course, the way they were family men, and I know how important Jack's family is to him, and his wife Barbara is amazing, and Mr. Nelson, just I mean, the consummate gentleman. I've just so kind and so sweet and gracious to people, and those are I guess the reasons that I realized they were good players, but I really admired them for the things off the course as well.
What about mentors? People maybe that were a little bit closer to you along the way, who saw your talent, besides your dad and your mom, and decided that maybe I can help this young man a little bit.
Yeah, I think my dad, having access to a lot of, he's still my teacher to this day, but having access to a lot of golf professionals, a lot of great teachers in the Philadelphia section. He would once in a while take me to play with some folks that had played the tour. There was a guy, Stu Ingram, or he and Ed Doherty, who was a tour player as well, kind of got in the business together as assistant pros, and we played some golf with him. We saw some good teachers along the way that were in the Philly section, and I learned a lot. I guess I'd have to give some credit as well to my college golf coach, to Rick LaRose at Arizona, and just that, I guess, believe in me. A kid coming from Pennsylvania, goofy swing, allowed me to kind of be an individual at school and have my own swing and get the ball in the hole my own way, and really he allowed us to mature. He wasn't a real hands-on coach. It was more, don't want to be your mother. I don't want to be a babysitter. I'm going to treat you like men. I expect you to act like men. It's your job to get out there and do well in school. It's your job to go out there and practice. And all I'm really looking for is, do well in school and shoot a good number. And that's good enough for me. And so he really allowed me to kind of, I guess, mature through school. I had my ups and downs and my lumps, and had a bad season my junior year, but I think it made me a better person, made me a better player. Coach kind of allowed us to, there wasn't like a thumb on us. We didn't have to do everything the same way. We didn't have to, he wasn't out there on the golf course telling us how to get around the golf course. He let us make our own mistakes and become better players for it. And I'm not sure that's always the case in college golf. He allowed me to grow and I think become a better player.
When you think about your career and how long it's been, and actually even growing up, is there a piece of advice that you got that kind of you went, aha, oh, that's really, the answer to whatever issue I'm trying to deal with? What was the best piece of advice you ever got?
Boy, that's a good question. I think, I don't know if there's like, I had one moment where the light bulb went off. I had moments like that when I was growing up with my golf swing, with things that I understood. My golf swings always looked different. I never really studied the mechanics or like the perfect golf swing. I've always just been interested in mine and how it focused and worked. Um, I think what I was always really good at throughout my career is really identifying my weaknesses, identifying what I needed to improve at. Playing with players that maybe had more experience, that were better players than me at the time, whether that was growing up, whether that was in college, whether that was even as a young professional on the PGA Tour, always seeking out pros that had more experience, that were better players than me, and trying to figure out what I needed to do to improve. Not really trying to play like them, but what are they better at? What do they do better than me? And I identified those pretty well. And I think my father was always really good at helping me out and helping me make those areas of my games better. And from whether I played a practice round with Tom Kite my rookie year on tour, and I just never saw anyone prepare that way. I never saw anyone walk around the greens and draw all the stuff in his yardage books and figure out a golf course like he did. And I drove him probably absolutely crazy for 9 holes and asked a lot of questions. But later in my career, I was that guy that, Paul Azinger had a quote about me one time that said, every time I played a practice round with Jim, I felt like I was being out prepared. I take that as one of the biggest compliments I've ever been given. I think, I've been blessed to have, I said, I'll go back to my dad, and, you talk about heroes and people, he's still my teacher this day. He's the one that helped me form my game. I think we all try in golf to get better, and we know our strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes the problem is, like, I was never a long hitter. I wanted to be longer. I could have switched drivers. I could have played a golf ball that maybe launched a little higher, spun a little less. But my strengths were always from 125 yards and in. I was a great wedge player. In order to get longer, I had to give up what I was really good at, or I had to give up a little. And you can't play well that way. You have to really take advantage and maximize your strengths and realize what your weaknesses are. But anytime I tried to gain distance or I tried to switch products that went farther, I just never felt comfortable with them. I never played as well, and it didn't last long. I usually aborted that mission very quickly and made sure I was, sticking with my guns and sticking what I was good with.
That sounds kind of like an aha moment to me. You alluded to your swing, which is different than many. It's been ridiculed in a couple of funny ways by people like David Faraday and such. But I guess I would go back to Arnold Palmer, who you got to be when you were practicing with your friends. But yes, Arnold's comment was something to the effect, "Swing your swing," and it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as the head is where it's supposed to be when it gets down to the ball, right?
Yeah, and I think that day and age, Arnold Palmer, Chichi Rodriguez, I mean, Lee Trevino, one of the greatest ball strikers of all time. There were a lot of swings, Miller Barber, that didn't look conventional in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I think as you got to the 80s, 90s, 2000s, I definitely stuck out for sure with a little unique swing. But I think my dad's a good teacher for a number of different reasons. A lot of it's his communication, his ability to maybe talk to folks that maybe are mechanically inclined. I'm not very mechanically inclined. Doesn't teach everyone the same way. But what my dad always really believed in and I was a good athlete growing up, is that, what comes natural is very repeatable. And
Mm.
so he didn't want to try to change my swing and break it down and make it look like everyone else's, because he felt like under pressure that would be very difficult to repeat. But if we could take what I had and my natural ability and try to refine it and really focus kind of on the fundamentals, my grip, my posture, my alignment, getting that club back down the line and the face square, if I could do that with my own thumbprint, my own fingerprint, that would be repeatable and that would last. And so I think I'm very blessed that, I didn't. There's a lot of folks out there that believe if they could have got me at a young age, at the age of 8 or 9, and changed my swing, that maybe I would have even had better results. But we probably wouldn't be having this talk, and I probably wouldn't have played, the PGA Tour for my life as well. That's what I believe in my heart.
That's a good belief. Speaking of swings, you've seen them all in the pro-ams that you played. What is there something that we amateurs continue to do that you continue to see in pro-ams, that the biggest mistake we make?
There's a number of things that I continually see. I would say poor grips. And that one bothers me the most, having a bad grip, because it's your only connection to the club. And if your grip is really bad, it's going to be very difficult to hit good golf shots, or at least do it repetitively or often. Um, I see a lot of amateurs, they love to put the ball too far back in their stance. And so with that, it's very difficult to make a good swing. You see a lot of reverse pivots. And with the ball too far back in the stance, I think it gives them confidence that they're not going to hit the ball fat. They're going to hit the ball first. But if they were to hit it solid, they'd probably hit it really low, probably to the right. They won't hit it in the air. And so they try to kind of, revert back, reverse pivot, try to get the ball in the air. I think with that, you're going to lose a lot of distance. You're going to lose a lot of power, and just the ability to get through the golf ball into your left side. You'd almost be better off practicing with the ball too far forward in your stance. That would teach you how to kind of get through the ball, get to your left side, and you create some power and some momentum with a weight shift from your right side to your left. So those are two things. Everyone knows the third one I'm going to say is that most amateurs think that they hit a 9-iron 160 yards. And they do, maybe, when they hit it absolutely perfect, swing out of their shoes and catch the one that just goes absolutely perfect. But they try to hit every 9-iron 160 yards and seem to come up like a club short of the pin quite often. And so when I see amateurs play most of the time and they strike solid shots, they're never past pin high. They're either pin high or short. And so just kind of, I think, maybe being a little bit more realistic with yourself on it isn't. I hate to hear the comment like, well, I wonder if I can get 9-iron there. Well, that's probably not the most important way to look at it. It's probably, I wonder what club I can hit the closest to that pin, most often. And is that going to be a 9-iron, an 8-iron, a 7-iron? What gives me the best opportunity? And Paul Goytis made a comment to me one time we were playing the Champions Tour. And he said, I approach golf totally different from most people. He said, most people are trying to figure out what's the shortest club I can hit to get to the pin. He said, I think of golf the opposite way. I'm trying to figure out what's the most amount of club I can hit to this pin without going over the green. And, if I grab the 6-iron, it feels like too much. I grab the 7-iron and he goes, I finally get to a point where that's the right club. But he goes, I just want to swing easy and be able to control the golf ball all the time. And so it's an interesting way of looking at things. And amateurs don't look at the game that way usually.
I'm pretty sure we never played in a pro-am together, but you've described two of the three things in my swing, so I'll work on that. Golf is in such a great place right now, partly due to the pandemic, partly due to so many celebrities taking up the game, in that time as well. What is it about the game that is attracting people in your mind, and what can we do to continue to help grow it?
Well, I think one, you're outdoors, you're getting some exercise, especially if you're walking the golf course. You're hanging with your friends. It's an ability from a business perspective, from a social perspective. It does take a lot of time. It is quite of an expensive sport. I think we probably, I know in my neck of the woods here in Northeast Florida, we could use some more nice or good public golf courses. Most of the golf courses in the area here that you would consider like nice or you'd want to play, a lot of them are private, and there's not a lot of great public golf where near I live, and I'm sure there's folks out there listening that would say the same thing for their area. So, but really, I think for me, if you take the competitive side out of golf, I've always enjoyed playing tournaments and preparing and working. And when I was a kid, you'd practice all week, you'd have a game on the weekend. Well, the first time I got to play a tournament in golf and got to mimic that, hey, I can go practice for 2 weeks and then sign up for a tournament and see how I do. I loved it. But as I've gotten older and I've really enjoyed the benefits the other side of the game, and the fresh air, the being outside, and really just, rarely do you go play golf with people you don't want to play with, right? You're always with your friends and folks that you enjoy spending time with. And so whether that's gambling, playing for a Coke, giving each other a hard time, but you're spending time with folks that you know and you love, and I think that endears itself to why we all play the game.
We're watching a lot of television now too, and we watched the Ryder Cup this year in Italy. It seems to me that the tone of the Ryder Cup has changed over the years. I think back to your hero Jack Nicklaus conceding the putt to Tony Jacklin, and a sense of sportsmanship. What we're seeing now is a lot of screaming on the golf course, nationalism and stuff like that. Is the Ryder Cup where it's supposed to be? Is that where we have moved into, or do we need to throttle back a little bit?
Well, yeah, you know what? No one's ever asked me that question, and you make a very valid point. I think sports have turned that way. I mean, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. I mean, the chest bumping, the taunting, the NBA looked a little different for that matter in 1975 than it does right now, in the way the game's played. So I think that's a product maybe of society and the world today. I think the nationalism, the screaming at the top of your lungs. I mean, I've knocked putts in the Ryder Cup, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and I can't hear myself because the fans are going crazy. I've seen it happen to other players. It's definitely let that event grow. I mean, one of the things, if you said, what does everyone love? What do the fans love about the Ryder Cup so much? Well, from the American side, we're wearing the flag on our sleeve. We're representing something way bigger than ourselves. We're playing on a team, which you don't get to see very often in golf. And it's kind of the only time that a football game or a soccer game breaks out on a golf course. I mean, the cheers, the chants, the nationalism. I think in ways, a lot of that is very good, but you make a good point in that it was an event that was put together to kind of bring two sides together, across the pond, United States. It's supposed to be held, it's supposed to be a wonderful match. And then at the end of it, you're supposed to shake hands and move forward. And I've got a lot of wonderful friends from the European side that I met at the Ryder Cup. Darren Clark would be one of them. The first time I met Darren was at a Ryder Cup, and he and his wife and Tab and I had a dinner together, and we became friends. And anytime we saw him or he saw us at events, we got together, had dinner, shared a bottle of wine, chatted, learned about each other's families. So it has some great qualities. But yeah, I would agree that in spots it's gone overboard. I think we get in too many little tiffs and arguments, and it usually blows over. Some of my best friends on both sides, I mean, dating back to the 90s, got extremely upset with each other on the golf course, and 2 months later they had to talk about it, and it was all good. I think we put so much stress on these guys right now to compete, to win, and they put so much stress on themselves to have good weeks in the Ryder Cup or President's Cup that anytime that's why these things happen. They're stressed out. They're trying to play at the highest level they can, and when that happens, tempers flare, and it's maybe the one little side part of the Ryder Cup that isn't right, but there's a lot of good in it, and I love 99% of it. How's that?
That's a great answer. And I suppose part of that pressure comes from being a teammate, and not wanting to let your team down. It's maybe even tougher than playing individual in a
Oh, it is. It
yeah.
is. I think you have two ways to look at it. You have two ways to look at kind of team sports or playing in a Ryder Cup. You can say, man, I don't want to let this team down, or I have to play good, or, you feel like, again, you're not playing for just yourself. You're playing for your country, for your team.
Sure.
But you know what? There's a lot of support out there.
Yeah.
There's 30 million people watching on TV that want you to knock that putt in. There's 11 other players and their wives and significant others and captains that are pulling for you all along the way. So there's a lot of support out there. And I think, as a player, you kind of need to approach it that way. In my first Ryder Cup, I mean, I was so nervous, and all I really thought about was I really want to play well. I really want to help this team out. But all I really focused on was me. I was a rookie.
Hmm.
The best way I could help this team is if I go and I play very well. Well, you know what? There's 11 other guys on that team, and it didn't really matter how well I played, because if 12 of us don't go over there and play well and gel together, you're still not going to win. And so the idea is kind of, as you play in a few of those events, you become a veteran in that. You start kind of looking at things more as a captain. You start asking the captain how you can help him out. What do you see? You start looking around the team room. You start picking out some young players that maybe are struggling, maybe not playing as well. Maybe you can tell they're tight, they're nervous. You start trying to figure out how can I allow these other help, or allow these other 11 players to showcase what they can do. And that seemed to take some of the pressure I put on myself off as well. I always wanted to play well, but you start looking around the team room, and how can I make these other 11 guys more comfortable? How can I be a good teammate so that we all play well together?
And the other thing is you've got the support of all the wives and families that are
Yeah,
there as well. That's kind of a different approach too.
absolutely, absolutely. One of the coolest things in the Ryder Cup is being one of the last matches out on the golf course, or be the last match out on the course. You're coming up the 18th fairway. You've got, the Euro teams on one side, the American teams on the other. The fans are going crazy, and just stand like I've had putts to win a match or to have a match, and you just kind of have to pinch yourself. You look around, and I got Paul Azinger and Ray Floyd, and folks that you just admired your whole career, and everyone's pulling for you. It's an amazing feeling. And on the other side of that, I've had some of the greatest times watching matches. A match that either mine was over, maybe I had a session off, got my practice in, I went out there to support teammates. I mean, going back to the most incredible day, or to watch, was the Ernie Els Tiger Woods at the President's Cup in South Africa. How we sent him out in a playoff. I think it was just 2 holes because of darkness. But having both teams there, and the pressure that was put on those guys and the shots they hit, it was just a wonderful day. Nicholas was the captain. I was the first match out against Mike Weir, and we finished our match. I was first one done, and I hopped in a cart, rode around for 2 hours with Jack, watching all the matches,
Wow.
and then got to watch the best playoff maybe in the history of the game. It was a pretty incredible day.
What's your fondest memory of this year's Ryder Cup?
Um, I think I just enjoy I enjoy being with the guys. I enjoy being part of a team. The camaraderie, after the matches, everyone in the team room, you start telling stories about what happened in your match, and guys, we have a great time together. Rome's a pretty special place. The last 2 Ryder Cups in Europe were in Paris and Rome, and amazing cities. So, for Tabitha and I to be over there and to spend the time with, some of the younger players. I'm old enough to be their father now, some of them. So that part's frustrating, but the camaraderie, really, I think the team atmosphere, the team aspect. I really looked up to a lot of the guys that were captains of our team, and I was pinching myself, saying, I can't believe that Ray Floyd is here, and he's asking what you need and how I can help. And so to be able to kind of return that favor, and really kind of keep in touch with some of the young players, American players, has been really rewarding for me. So I just say the friendships and the camaraderie that goes along with it. It always bothers me. It always pains my heart. And I know there's nothing we can do about it as players, but like to hear this year that there are some media outlets saying that there was a rift in our team room, and they were mentioning that Xander and Cantlay were by themselves and not hanging with the team. And it just wasn't true. And so when I hear stuff like that, it bothers me. I know now there's nothing I can do about it, but, I saw the way those guys worked in the team room. I know how hard Zach worked to try to help that team be successful. And so for me, it's rewarding to be a part of that. I realized we didn't get the outcome we wanted, and it's definitely not, there's things we all could have done better from a captain standpoint, from a player standpoint, but, we'll try to make some changes for the future and get better. And I've got the President's Cup coming up next year. So, for me, it was great to be included by Zach and to be part of this team, because a lot of those same guys will be on my President's Cup team next year.
Yes, congratulations on being the captain of the President's Cup. What's the difference in being the captain and being a support person
Device
for that?
It's a lot more stressful.
Busy.
How's that? It's a lot more stressful. The one thing the captain is obviously making all the final decisions, relying on his vice captain's eyes, ears. What are you seeing out there? But they don't see a lot of golf. Captain usually, even in the practice rounds, they have you in the media room. They have you you're not even out there with the guys a lot of the time. So you're on the first tee, sending everyone off. You might be on the par threes. You really don't, as a captain, you don't see a lot of golf, which is really interesting to me. When you're a vice captain, it's like you're one of the guys. I mean, you're a support. You go out, you follow a match, you get into that match for an entire day. You're with those two players, and it's so much fun. I mean, you're cheering for them, you're rooting for them, and then you're also kind of paying attention. How's everyone playing? Do they look tired? Or we got to send this guy out. He's playing amazing. We got to get him back out there this afternoon. So, you're just trying to offer help. But I see a lot of golf. I mean, I watched probably 90 holes of golf or close to it. 5 matches. I probably watched 85 holes of golf at the Ryder Cup this past year. When in Paris, I probably watched 10, if that makes sense. So you just don't see a lot of golf, and you become more of a CEO, kind of like the head coach of a football team a little bit in the Ryder Cup versus the offensive coordinator really calling the plays. That's kind of what the vice captains are doing.
Why don't you briefly explain? I'm sure some of our audience knows, and some may not entirely. What's the difference in the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup, and how did the President's Cup come to be?
Well, I think there's, a history, of course. The Ryder Cup started in, I want to say 1927. You might correct me there, but I think it's 1927. The President's Cup started in about it was either 92 or 94. I think it was 94. And so the difference is, from an American standpoint, there's not a giant difference. The one thing is we're playing every year. The Europeans are playing every other. The international team's playing every other. But there's format changes. We play for 28 points in the Ryder Cup. We play for 30 now in the President's Cup. Used to be 34. The pairings. As a captain, when you pair your guys in the Ryder Cup, you put out a lineup. I'm gonna put Cantlay and Xander out 1. I'm gonna put Spieth and Thomas out 2, and you put a lineup out, and then they do the same, and you just match cards and you figure out who's playing who. In the President's Cup, the international captain Mike Weir is going to say, all right, my first group out, I'm going to put out player X and player Y, and then I say, okay, I'm going to match that, and I'm going to put out player A and B, and then I go to the second match, I put out my players, and he matches, and you kind of do a little snake format on the way down. So it's kind of an interesting difference. I think that if you look at kind of the past in the President's Cup, we've had a lot of success from an American standpoint, and I think a lot of it was because of our history and our past, and guys playing in these events each and every year. And I think it took the international team a little while to kind of not catch up, but figure out their pairings, kind of getting guys together, figuring out the week, the team atmosphere of things. The last few captains have done a great job, and they've really kind of narrowed the gap, whether that was Ernie Els, whether it was Trevor Immelman. I know Mike Weir is going to do an amazing job because he's had a lot of experience as a vice captain. And so, they have now kind of they're gathering folks from all over the world, from South Africa, from Australia, from Canada, from Fiji, China, Japan. You start naming all these countries, and then they put them in a team, and they go, wait a second, like we don't even speak the same language. They have a hard time communicating at times. So what they've done the last 6 to 8 years is they've really tried to manage those situations and kind of become, uh, a coherent team, and they've done a really good job of it. And with that, they're very talented players, so they've closed that gap and scared the Americans quite a number of times. So it'll be our goal to try to stay ahead next year in Montreal and go on our away game and hopefully get another win.
And good luck. I mean, we certainly wish you the best success there. Let's talk about a time you just totally had to be in the zone, or maybe you weren't. I suppose that's what's fascinating about golf. You shot 58 in a PGA tournament. How's that happen? What was going through your mind?
I skipped a few holes. You skip 2 or 3. It's pretty easy. I shot 58 and 59 in a PGA Tour event, and both rounds really mimicked each other. I never really thought that I'd ever have that opportunity to break 60. My game is interesting. I'm probably known a little bit more for grinding it out, for U.S. Open style of golf. Par's a good score, single digits under par. That's kind of probably my calling card a little bit more for style of play. But I look back to early in my career, and 3 of my first 4 wins on tour were in Las Vegas. So 5-round events where I shot 25, 28, 29 under. I think in order to be kind of a complete player, you kind of have to be comfortable with both styles. You have to, know how to go out there and shoot low numbers and not let it bother you and try to keep the pedal down. And then also manage a golf course when it's not yielding good scores, when par is going to be a good score. You recognize that, and you kind of change the way you play a golf course to get the ball in the hole. And so, the 58, both rounds I got off to amazing starts, 8 under on the front 9, but the 58 kind of came at a really strange time. And I'd been on the road for 4 weeks, 29 straight days. I was tired. My game was not in very good shape. I was hitting a lot of balls each week. I was making cuts, but I was finishing 50th, 60th, 45th. Like I wasn't happy with my game. And that last day, I actually, one of those rounds, either the Friday or Saturday round, I was so angry I think it was Saturday. I was so angry with the way I played. I think I shot 1 over on Saturday on a golf course that was giving up good scores, that I just told Fluff to go home. I said, I'm so angry. I'm so mad. I just don't, you know what? I don't want anyone there. I'll probably just sit there and yell at you anyway. Like I'm just in a bad mood. Why don't you just go home? And I picked my bag up and I hopped on the cart and I carried it down the range myself. And I sat there for an hour hitting balls and trying to calm down, but figure out what was going on in my golf swing. And I think really the next day, it just, that hard work that I put in for those 4 weeks kind of came together in one day. I think a lot of it probably had to do with my attitude. I was going home, and I had been on the road for four straight weeks, which I don't do very often. So I was getting back to see Tab and the kids, which they had been on the road with me, but I was getting back to see my family, and just I had a week off and I was tired. And so my attitude for that day was just, I was in a good mood. I really didn't care if I went out and shot a low one or if I shot 71 again. It really didn't matter. I was in 70th place in a tournament with 73 guys made the cut. So, but I went out and, birdied 2. I holed a wedge at 3, birdied 4, birdied 6, 7, 8, 9. And so now all of a sudden you're 8 under par. And I was like, well, here we go again. I mean, I did this a few years ago in Chicago and shot 8 under, and people started rushing. The media room started clearing out. People came over to the 10th tee. I actually even jawed with one of the guys, good friend that's in the media. I was like, I mean, imagine you being out here this early on a Sunday morning. I mean, something special going on? Or, he just kind of gave me that look like, you smart ass is kind of what I got out of it. So, but then I birdied 10, 11, and 12. So now I'm 11 under through 12. And it just, at that point, it's a mental battle. I mean, everything's going well. I'm hitting the ball well. I'm knocking in putts. But you start thinking about barriers. You start thinking about the next shot. You start or you quit thinking about the next shot and you start thinking about what am I going to make on this hole and the scores. And, you know, I missed a good birdie putt at 14. I lipped out like 360 to an 8-footer at 15. I made a bomb at 16. That was the one long putt I made all day. I made about a 30, 35 footer. And then 17 was a hole that's always given me trouble. I made double on it, I think in round one. And so I stepped up on the tee and made a real tentative swing on 17, kind of hit it down the right side, you know, tight against the water. And I kind of told myself at that point that I don't care how I finish. I don't know, you know, what's going to happen in this tournament. But no matter what, I'm going down swinging. Like, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to fire at some pins. I'm going to, you know, try to stripe it off 18. I'm not going to make a tentative swing. I'm going to make an aggressive swing. And I made 3 pretty good swings the rest of the way in, 2 pars and you know, 58. So that record's going to get broken and tied, broken. You know, Mr. Geiberger was the first one to do it, and I think it was 28 years before, you know, before I beat that record. It'd be really cool to kind of like hold on to at least a tie for 28 years. I'll say that. But someone's going to beat it. The way the game of golf is going, the athlete, bigger, stronger, faster, just more prepared, equipment, whatever it may be. They're, you know, someone's going to beat it. But it's fun to hold that record right now and kind of be a part of history.
It's really fun to hear about that. Thanks for sharing that. I want to talk a little bit about Boxto and how you got involved, but
yeah,
just one other question before we get into that. And I'm guessing it's not the 58, but you know, we talked, you know, a little bit about your entire career here and maybe your entire life. What if you you know, somebody put your hand to the fire, what makes you most proud, Jim? What, you know, when you go to bed at night, put your head on the pillow and you kind of go, well, that was pretty good.
I guess I could probably say I might pick I definitely picked the U.S. Open ahead of the 58. Most of my friends don't understand. They're like, I mean, 4 guys win a major every year. I mean, only one person shot 58, but I guess being able to do that over the course of 4 days and putting up with that stress for 4 days is difficult. But I guess if you had to ask me, I'd say kind of the longevity and the consistency is probably what I'm most proud of. You know, I was a rookie in 1994, and I, for over 20 years, you know, until I started to get injured, like, you know, 46, I was still ranked, you know, 4th in the world. So I think to be able to play on, you know, 9 Ryder Cup teams, I played on 7 President's Cup teams, to kind of continue to do that year in and year out, and kind of have some longevity with it, I think is probably what I'm most proud of.
Well spoken. As I said earlier, we want to thank, excuse me, Boxto for their involvement here. And by the way, there will be a random drawing at some point here for one of the listeners with our conversation here, and they're going to get a brand new pair of Boxto shoes and a Boxto belt. So, Mr. Furyk, why don't you tell them what they can expect when they get their Boxto shoes and put their feet in them? How'd you get involved with Boxto, and what is it about the quality that you love?
Well, I met some of the folks from Boxto. I met Jorge and Fernando, and then Raul later. But I met them at TPC at Sawgrass. They were in town. Asked if I'd come over and look at some shoes. I saw the name Boxto. I thought they were going to have kind of a squared off toe or something. I didn't know what they were going to look like. And I walked into this room there that's kind of denoted to the President's Cup and all the wonderful pictures of that event. And they had about 20 pairs of shoes laid out on the table, and they looked absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it kind of took me a little bit back in time of being a young player and wearing a beautiful all leather golf shoe. And I went, whoa, this is not what I was expecting. And so they had my attention right there. And we started talking about the different styles. They have an all leather sole with spikes. They have a leather upper with a rubber sole, very similar to what I had been wearing in the past as far as a spike pattern. They also have a more athletic line, but all gorgeous shoes, all leather shoes. You could tell the craftsmanship was phenomenal. So I think when you're a player and you're looking to align yourself with different companies, I think one, you want quality, right? You never want to blend your name to something that isn't top notch and a high end product, but you're also looking at people. And so I really enjoyed uh, meeting Fernando that day and meeting Jorge that day. And then I was invited to go to the Orlando show as well with Boxto, and met Raul, and just a lot of fun. He's got a lot of, I guess, a lot of pride in the craftsmanship coming out of Mexico and Leon, Mexico. They're, represented from Houston, Texas, here in the United States. But uh, I guess just I love the product, I love the people, and it seemed like a real easy fit for me to want to wear their shoes. And so I've enjoyed it. I'm still trying a bunch of the different styles. I like them all. I'm trying to figure out which ones I like the best right now.
I received a pair and put my foot in, and my foot started talking to me. It just said, ah.
Perfect. I love a good fit.
As I mentioned, there'll be a random drawing, and someone here will win a pair of Boxto shoes and a Boxto belt. My thanks to Boxto and to Jim Ireland for their support for this conversation. If you want to learn more, go to boxtogolf.com or just go out and buy a pair. I'm sure they'd appreciate that as well. Thank you, Jennifer Morton, CEO of the AGM, and your team for all the support. And of course, I got to tell you, Jim, as I mentioned before we got on the air, Peter Jacobson mentioned when we were talking about the good guys in golf, your name was right up there at the top. So I have to tell Peter that he's absolutely right. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your candor and your spending some time with us today.
I appreciate it. I had a great time. Whoops, sorry about that. I got a little dog. I had a great time today. It was wonderful talking to you. And it was great kind of reminiscing about my career and then getting to talk a little bit about Boxto at the end. And, wonderful people. And as I've always said, like, two things in golf: I want my shoes to look good, but man, they have to perform. And I got both of those, and some great folks to represent the company. So happy to be there with them.
Well, I'm sure it's a two-way street, and they're happy to have you as well. So thank you
Thanks.
again, and on behalf of Boxto and AGM, let me thank you. The raffle winner, by the way, is Wendy Cash. Wendy, you're going to win a pair of Boxto shoes and a belt package. And so congratulations to you. For me, I'm Frank LaRosa. I was deeply honored to have this conversation and time with Jim. And I wish you, Jim, continued success and good fortune and health and happiness for your family. And to everyone else, have a great day. Thanks for joining us here on Zoom for this Boxto AGM conversation with Jim Furyk.